All right, guys, welcome back to Key Knowledge 3 of this third outcome of Unit 3 in Operations Management. And in this video, we are looking at the difference between operations management in manufacturing businesses and services businesses. Okay, so here is our study design, and here we can see the third key knowledge, characteristics of operations management within both manufacturing and services businesses. Now, you can see from the timeline that this is a pretty short video, probably one of the shortest in the entire Year 12 course, you'll be happy to know. So let's get into it. Now, by now, first key knowledge, we explained what operations was. So hopefully you've got a good understanding what we mean by operations. And we looked at how operations can help a business achieve its objectives. And then in the second key knowledge, we looked at the operations system, which is what you see there. The operations system in any business is going to transform inputs into outputs. So you remember that: inputs, processes, outputs. Remember what I said in that video. Whenever you see those two words together, operations system, always your brain goes to inputs, processes, outputs. Now, we kind of touched on this a couple of times during probably both of those first few videos, but certainly in the operations system one. The difference is that the output is very different in a manufacturing business than that of a service-focused business, okay? A manufacturer produces a tangible good, so tangible, something you can physically touch. It physically exists, can be physically seen, physically touched. Now, if you're manufacturing goods, they need to be stored before being distributed to customers. And once they're created, it can't be altered. I mean, I guess to a point, maybe post-creation it could be, but largely speaking, once a good is manufactured, it is what it is. You're not going to change it. If you're going to do any changes, that would happen during the production process. So basically, once it's produced, it's generally not customized to suit individual customer needs. That would happen during production. Now, these days, as we've seen already at your cult, production of goods is generally capital intensive. In other words, there's extensive use of machinery and equipment rather than labor meaning human effort. Okay, so you went back a number of generations, that would have been different, but increasingly, and we look at this more actually in the next video, which is technology strategies in operations. Then these days, when we're making goods or products, generally speaking, there's a lot of use of machinery and equipment involved. Whereas a service business produces an intangible or non-physical product, not something you can physically see or touch. So for some examples, financial services, education, recreation, legal services, that kind of thing. Now, services are generally performed rather than produced, and they usually involve labor much more than what the production of goods involves. Service provision requires significant interaction with customers because usually the consumer or the customer is consuming the service, using the service, receiving the service as it is being performed. And service is usually customizable to suit individual customer requirements. So as the service is being delivered, it's being tweaked to those individual customer needs. Now, this is basically the key to this in terms of your learning. This is a simple table which summarizes the key differences between operations in manufacturing and services. So really, most of your learning is going to involve learning this table and then producing this in answers. So, first difference. We've touched on this already. This is kind of summarizing a lot of what we've just said. Manufacturing businesses produce a physical, tangible product, whereas services produce an intangible service. Products can be stored, whereas services cannot be stored. Goods are permanent or semi-permanent. In other words, once you produce this, it exists kind of forever. The semi-permanent refers to perishable goods such as foodstuffs, which obviously exist now, but in a certain period of time it will degrade and it will no longer exist. Whereas services are impermanent. They don't exist in a physical form. The customer is not present when products are being produced, whereas customers are usually present when the service is being produced. Now, I've got a little bit of red in there. Operations has no customer contact, and operations has extensive customer contact. You need to be careful the way you word this in answers. Don't go putting the business has no customer contact for manufacturing, because the business may well have customer contact. It's just not the operations part of the business that does. In other words, the part of the business that actually produces the products, that part of the business doesn't have customer contact. But sales and marketing, for example, customer services will have extensive customer contact. So you have to be careful that you word that properly, in that the operations function or the operations division, whatever you want to call it, has no customer contact with manufacturing businesses, but there is extensive customer contact with operations in a service business. The fifth one there, lower level of customization in manufacturing businesses of the products. I mean, yeah, products can be customized to a point, but largely speaking, you're producing lots and lots and lots of essentially the same thing. Whereas with a service business, there is a high degree of customization. So if you are involved in delivering financial advice, for example, to a customer, then when the next customer comes in, obviously the financial advice is going to be different. It varies customer to customer. So you're customizing that service for each individual customer rather than just producing lots of the same thing. And finally, again, touched on already, but manufacturing businesses tend to have highly automated processes that are capital intensive. Again, think back to your cult when we're looking down on the factory floor. Not many people, but lots and lots of very expensive machinery and equipment. Whereas, again, already touched upon, service businesses tend to have much more labor intensive processes. Now, the similarities. So that's the differences. But there are obviously some similarities between the two types of business. First off, both of them aim to optimize operations to produce maximum quality at minimal cost. We said that right from the get-go in the very first key knowledge when we looked at what operations is. That's what they're all about on a daily basis. That's what they're striving to achieve, producing the highest quality output for the lowest cost possible. Second one, both of them deal with suppliers in our operations process. Different types of suppliers potentially, but they're both going to have to, all businesses have suppliers of some description. So the operations is going to have to deal with suppliers. Both can utilize technology in our operation processes. And again, that's what we're going to talk about in the very next key knowledge point, the next video, some technology strategies. There are some strategies which apply to both, but some which are very specific to one or the other. And then the fourth one there, both aim to optimize efficiency and effectiveness in their operations. Now, actually, that fourth one there, I would say, is really kind of restating the first one using different words. Producing maximum quality at minimal cost really is the same as optimizing efficiency and effectiveness. So actually, if I was going to be choosing two similarities, I probably wouldn't choose those two because it could be thought of as double dipping a bit there, because you're really saying the same thing just in a different way. So just be wary of that. And that is basically it. A few key differences and a few key similarities between operations, management in manufacturing and services. That's it. I will see you in the next video. We're going to talk about technology strategies. Cheers for now.